anything was possible.
We didn't have the internet.
It was back to basics.
It was different. It was very cool.
We all worked really hard.
Total DIY. Things that other people just didn't understand.
Everybody was in it.
It was a revolution.
Remember what she said that day in the car? Her car, of course.
But can't you see it's impossible, Ted? It's not just money. We live in different worlds.
Sure, different worlds inside this town, but there are other worlds, bigger towns. You've got some money saved, go to New York.
The rest of America is a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there.
We're the keepers of the memories, so it would be great if we could pass on that, you know, those memories to people. I was living on 57th and 10th with two other girls. Two of us were go-go dancers and one was a Playboy bunny. I was one of the go-go dancers, so not that I didn't waitress or bartend or any of that, but like when times were tight, this crazy one of the girls I live with, she sort of, even when I was at NYU, she's like, oh, you know, you can make an easy $100, get on this bus with me, come out to this bar, you don't have to be naked or topless or anything, you just dance. And it was pretty freaky. I have a very funny story about that. And so I did other things. I bartended, you know, but you know, when money was tight, I would take a bus to New Jersey. I was a crazy kid. We were crazy. So that's around the time I was also a massage therapist. I had started that when I was 18 up at the Catskills. My mom's friend was a massage therapist, actually from Sweden, and she trained me and she gave me this summer job. So I actually even got kicked out of the dorms, or almost kicked out of the dorms, because somebody wrote, when I was at the dorm at NYU one semester, somebody wrote an article about me, you know, doing massage in the dorms. So of course, you know, they think it's something illegal, which it wasn't. And I was, you know, told to cease and desist, and that was bringing in money. Then what did I do? I started teaching yoga, even though I had no training, but my mom was into it, and I bought the books. At New York Health and Racket on the weekends, I had, let's see, Israel Horowitz was a student, and some other famous actors. It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. So when you lived on 57th Street, at what point did you move downtown?
That, you know, 57th Street, when I started recording around that time,
How old were you?
21. I met a gentleman who's a famous musician, Leon Pendarvis. He's the musical director for Saturday Night Live. He's played with everybody from Michael Jackson to Aretha, Paul Simon. He's still such a dear friend. I met him because I moved out of 57th and 10th to 94th and Broadway, this like SRO, kind of scary, sketchy little place. And I was broke, I had to pay the rent, so I took out an ad to sell my massage table. And this woman responded, and she said, well, are you a massage therapist? I said, yes. She said, do you want to come and massage my client 3 days a week, Sephora Herman? And I said, sure. She goes, you can leave the table here, just bring it and we'll employ you. Well, that was really cool. That was a really interesting period of my life. I walk in, this woman with flaming red hair, very big woman, Sephora Herman. Her dad was Sam Herman, and he used to, he was like an agent for musicians for sessions. And that's how I met Leon. Patty Austin became a massage client of mine, Denise Williams. And so I did my first recording with Leon Pendarvis, and I wrote a song called Space Lady, and I sprayed my hair silver, and I wore probably something like this with, like, you know, very disco looking. And I don't know if he still has those recordings. Space Lady, you're moving too fast. I don't know, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was
from selling your work.
Isn't that interesting?
material to becoming employed and
And meeting all those musicians. Yeah.
My kids aren't going to see this, right?
when they're
Eventually.
18.
Why 18?
Well, that's
Because it's going to be rated XXX, like Wendy O. Williams.
Oh, poor Wendy. So yeah, so we met. It was kind of weird, and there was something, I don't know, I felt I had to call her. But I remembered her number. I don't know how.
nice.
589-5914. Your mom's number,
Yeah.
right? I have a weird memory.
Yeah, he's good with dates
I
and
got a
numbers.
really
and
big hard drive up there.
I'm not like that.
But even in a Quaalude, the next morning, I don't know if you ever did a Quaalude, the next morning you're still a little kind of stunad, and I somehow woke up and went to the phone and, can I talk to your daughter? And then we met and went on a date. And the thing you said on the date, we're leaving, it was like November. We're leaving, and she turns to her mom, who's real Italian, older than my mom was. It's a good night to get hit by a car.
Oh, yeah.
And her mom just goes, Barbie, please. That was her parting words to her mom.
You know, I've always had a
Before,
little,
I don't know where we went.
a little gloomy
Oh,
edge.
where
You know,
did
if
we
you
go?
if you expect the worst and nothing happens, then you're in bonus land.
Oh, stop. That's crazy.
Or you have no expectations.
Yeah, or
I
really
thought
low.
she was trying to get attention,
Yeah, maybe.
desperately. Anyway.
So, as far as professionally writing music together, how did that bounce off each other? How Ralph would come to Bob, I have an idea. Bob would
No,
come to
I think
Ralph.
she usually had the idea.
And then how did she approach you?
Probably did, and I probably just started noodling around to whatever she was doing. She probably didn't even want me to do it.
Oh, that's not true.
I feel like I just kind of barged in.
That's
That
not,
was what my
that's
perception.
not true at all.
I'd hear her humming a melody, and I would try to fit something to it.
Yeah.
I wasn't waiting for an invitation.
Well, you
And
know,
some of the things were odd. You had some odd
time signatures
things you wanted, and
yeah.
you had this idea, and it was sometimes it was a little. For a guitar player, it would be like guitar players don't go.
Right. I like,
So
you
we
know,
would-
syncopation and mechanical sounds or very classical sounds. I'm open musically.
Do you feel it was an advantage to be married and
Ooh,
in a band
that's a
together?
whole other video. To be married and then have a rock band that starts getting some attention and everyone's telling you you're going to be the next big thing. I don't know how you felt, but I was happy to be married, but at the same time, there was a part of me that kept thinking, is this what rock star? John Lennon did it, actually. Remember early on? They
all
put
married.
on the teleprompter to the audience, sorry, ladies, he's married. But I think there was a part of me that just wanted to be like Jim Morrison, you know, of course, or Keith Richards.
So you feel
But I
that hold you back and so?
I wouldn't say that, but I think that I was young, so I think part of that probably had that underlying attitude and the swagger and that anger, which probably translated in a good way. You know?
took the rock and roll aspect, and I took the classical music aspect from both of my brothers, and I incorporated them into my own style and or expression, however you want to take it, and that's how I began to become a musician. But as far as what your question was, in high school, what was I like? I went to, as I said, I went to Patterson Catholic. I didn't enjoy it. I got kicked out after sophomore year. I got kicked out of that high school. And then I had to go to another high school in Patterson called John F. Kennedy. And that was a public school. And I finished out junior and senior year in that school. And that is kind of where, as I said, I did my first show at a party. And I really started getting into music, punk rock, Suicidal Tendencies, GBH, Discharge, all that, the Sex Pistols, the whole 9 yards, you know.
Where did you go to hear that music?
I didn't. I didn't go to clubs and see music at all. I mean, I went to concerts, but back then, even concerts were all the heavy metal bands. It was still arena rock. I used to go to Giant Stadium, Madison Square Garden, and places like that to see bands like Iron Maiden, Kiss, Judas Priest, and all that stuff.
But more of the underground bands, how did you get exposed to them?
Well, the only way I got exposed to the underground music was simply by going to record stores, Bleecker Bob's, and finding a record in the punk rock section or in the gothic rock section or the death rock section. And I would look at the album and I would ask one of the guys behind the counter, like, hey, you know, what do you know about this band? And they would tell me. And I would say, all right. And I would take the chance by buying the record, taking it home, listening to it, and, you know, either I liked it or I didn't. Back then, you didn't have MP3s. You didn't have the internet. You didn't even have record stores that would play a record for you 9 times out of 10. Bleecker Bob's would. They would do that for you. But a lot of the other record stores, no. If that record was sealed, they didn't open it up. You bought it, and you either liked it or you threw it away. So that's how I got exposed to the underground scene, purely by my own chance. Never by seeing a band, because I was too young. I didn't go to my first club until I was 21 years old.
But there was all Manhattan. There was nothing like that in New Jersey.
There were record stores, of course, but the club scene, if you were under 21 in New Jersey, you didn't get into a club unless you knew somebody. And of course, unless you were a girl and you can flash your tits and get into a club. But as a man, as a young boy, I should say, young man, I didn't have that opportunity. Nobody let me into clubs. I didn't know anybody who worked at the door or worked as a bartender. I could never get into a club.
No fake ID?
I had one, but it never worked. I had a fake ID, but it never worked. Never worked. In fact, I used it like twice, and both times they looked at it and they laughed. They're like, get the hell out of here.
Comfortably wrapped in treacherous barbed wire, so many stagger or consolation. Picture clouds swaying the apocalypse
I'll never forget, though, doing this gig in Long Island once, and Bobby's drums came on, you know, because we had music on tracks, you know, we were trying to do the modern thing. And then the drum, you know, thing got on, you know, plug came out, and he's like, and I'm like.
Yeah, there was that track act
right.
thing.
Yeah, we were trying to do that.
Experimental, and it's like,
yeah.
At that point, why don't you just play a CD or a deck? Why take those chances?
Right.
So, okay. Do you know how long that lasted?
I have no idea.
And
a year, maybe? Less? I don't know.
Then from there you started Raining Violet, or was there?
Then yes, then Raining Violet. Bug was still around, and we had so many different amazing musicians in Raining Violet. That's Jared was the bass player.
Yeah, who were some of the musicians in that?
Pilly Bianchi was on keyboards for a while. Lorenzo Ponce was on electric guitar. And Peter Min was on guitar.
Who was their drummers?
Electric violin, Lorenza. The drummer was Jason, and then I think, did Alex take over for a while? No, and I think there was another guy that took over for a while. I am spacing on his name.
Okay. So...
And we did the 5-song EP with that band.
What was the EP called?
Ocean of Dreams.
And which was also a song.
Which is also a song that I actually started writing when I was 16.
And
when I lived in the Catskills. Can you believe that? You know, when I was, you know, young, kind of hippie chick.
And another song I remember was...
oh yeah, I was into psychedelic rock too, big time, growing up. And yeah, it was the 70s, you know, Pink Floyd, Procol Harum, you know, all the country rock bands, and you know, Grateful Dead and Steve Miller, and you know, I can go on and on. Alabama, you know, that was my era. I was 16 in '76, so you know, we used to drive to this place we called the Moon. It was this big crater, or, you know, big, I don't know. I lived in the country. We were bored, and we'd sit in the car and get high and listen to, you know, Pink Floyd.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I do. I like. Yeah.
Well, we did them a little more than just that.
Yeah, so did we, but I'm, you know, being recorded.
There was another song, Roses.
Roses Wrapped in Cellophane.
Yes.
I have a good story about that. I got the title because it's a, no, Roses Wrapped in Cellophane, is that? No. What was, that had a couple of incarnations. No, Roses Wrapped in Cellophane is not the song I'm thinking about. Roses Wrapped in Cellophane, it's just, you know, I saw these roses wrapped in cellophane and made the analogy of life. You know, they're only fresh for a while and then they wilt and la 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 la, you know. But, and I played that with Raining Violet for a long time. And there's a story about that as well.
Can you share that?
The gentleman that played Superman, Chris Reeves. He was getting, we had done a gig, Jason was the drummer at the time, and a cab stopped, and I see these roses wrapped in cellophane come out of the cab, and I don't see anything but that, and I just yell, I think I'd had a couple beers, I was like, roses wrapped in cellophane, and this, like, Adonis that doesn't look real. He also had makeup on because he'd just done a show at the Pap, and gets out of the cab and he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Oh," and it didn't register who he was just yet. Jason immediately knew. And this is my Superman story and my Chris Reeve story. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I have a song called Roses Wrapped in Cellophane." He said, "Oh, I want you to have these." I said, no, you just, I think he told me he had just come from the Pap Theater performing. I said, "No, you just performed, someone gave them to you." And he said, "No, I want you to have them to bring you good luck."
Basically, you record in one city,
Yeah.
you can rehearse in one city, you get your musicians in one city. It was easy. It was easy in a practical way. Like, we had things at our fingertips. fashion people, clothing, hair, whatever we had to do. It just seemed like kind of everything was available to us. Like we didn't, it's not like we were in the Midwest somewhere and we had to like get it delivered from really far or call across the field for somebody. It was like everybody was around.
Yeah, we had a big, it was kind of like an entourage. I mean, even your nephew would come in, he would like, let me help you with equipment and loading stuff. There were people that would just, I don't remember wrangling, you know, people for help. Except our band members, we had to make sure they were available and they, you know, we'd have to compensate them because they were doing 50 billion other things. But as far as like roadies, I paid. But aside from that, there were a lot of other people from lighting, maybe we'd want a smoke machine and somebody would have to run it, to makeup and hair and clothing. And we had a lot of people that were just into following us and being there. And that was probably a good part of the audience too.
It was nice. It felt like friends. It just felt like people, like it was like one community.
They were like along for the ride.
Like your bands that you supported so much, like just people in the scene, you know? You just go to each other's gigs.
Yeah.
You know, then when someone else would play, we'd go to their shows, and it was just how it was.
Who did the coordination
community.
of the fashion person, makeup person? Did you share that responsibility?
I think a lot of them just materialized because we're both in the hair business.
Yeah, we're hair and makeup people.
I worked at Vidal Sassoon, and that's how we met Juan, because one of our receptionists knew him, and then Juan knew Joseph, and then
Teresa.
Teresa, that was your friend. She was out there. She was like a club kid.
She's a really good makeup artist and
She
hairdresser.
was a little. I wish we had pictures of her. But we had, so I think it just materialized. But I think, I mean, in all honesty, I think Barbie was more of the magnet than I was.
Not at all.
Oh, come on.
Like skinny
You
guy
were like
with
so interesting.
long hair. And
they would make, I think,
guitar.
Yeah, but I felt like
little scrawny rocker.
Like I said earlier, you were the Mick Jagger. I was like Charlie Watts.
No, I was not the Mick Jagger. Charlie Watts.
You were a diva.
Not even
I'm
Keith.
a guitar player.
Come on,
Okay, I was Keith.
You were the
But
Keith,
you know
and
what
I was
mean?
Tiny Tim.
She was. I think she was more of the spectacle. I was definitely. I'm not putting myself down, but let's be realistic. I think Barbie was very much a curiosity to a lot of people.
Curiosity. That's a better way to put it.
No, but in a way, I think that was, and that. I mean, she would come home with gigs, and I think because she would just barn her way in, you know, she'd go to Danceteria and she'd come home and go, I met Rudolph. And I'm like, Rudolph? How did you meet Rudolph? Rudolph from Danceteria was this kind of Illuminati that, how'd you meet him?
Do you know I have absolutely no recollection
She'd
of
get
that?
dressed up and she would go and she would get gigs. Sometimes the gigs were curious, but she came home with gigs. And I don't think if I went out, I don't think I could have gotten that.
Why didn't you come out with me? Why was I running around the city all by myself?
I don't know, but a lot of times you were doing this stuff with who knows who.
I was probably just worried about not having movement. I think that was always my concern, is that, like the shark theory, like if the shark isn't moving forward, the shark is gonna die, like Woody Allen, right?
Yeah.
So I think I had this urgency that I had to create movement if we were making music.
I think it's great. I mean, you got to say, kick at Danceteria.
I'm probably the kind of musician that should just be sitting on her bed strumming her acoustic guitar. You know, that's
you were much too public for
my innate nature. But once I was in a different environment, it was almost like, well, what do I do with this? I have to create some flow of energy to make it make sense.
I would put flyers on every single car that was parked in front of the club, and every person that walked out of that club was handed a flyer. In addition, I had a mailing list of about 3,000 people, all of which I acquired after being interviewed for a magazine called Propaganda. Propaganda was run by a man named Fred Berger. Fred Berger had interviewed me, did an article on Empire Hideous, myself, back in 1990 or 91, I can't remember. And that article got me all kinds of, what's the word I'm looking for? I got known from propaganda all over the world. When that article came out, it was, to this day, it was the one issue of that magazine that sold out in less than a month. I think the total sales were 16,000 magazines. Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction was on the cover, and they were at their peak that year. So everybody started reading about who's this band Empire Hideous, who's this guy Mike Hideous. And that's how we got this great following. Now, here's where I'm getting to with that conversation. Once that article came out, I got letters from all over the world: France, Portugal, Poland, Russia, Germany, Italy, England, Scotland. I mean, you just name it. Everything in Europe, every state in America. And I built up this mailing list of 3,000 people. And I used to write, so I used to make a newsletter or send out a postcard to every one of these people on the mailing list. And I used to handwrite their names on the envelope after folding the flyer, putting the flyer in the envelope, sealing it, putting a stamp on it. We had the little return address things on it, so it used to say Empire Hideous. And then handwriting out 3,000 names. It used to take me a week. So, you know, not only was I passing out flyers at the show, but I'm mailing out newsletters to people on the list, which were both local and international. So these are the things I would do to promote a show. So it would cost me money for stamps, money for envelopes, money for printing, money for gas to get to the places that I had to go to hand out the flyers. And then keeping in mind, I also had a full-time job at the time. So I'd work 9 to 5 in the day. I'd rehearse 2 days a week during the week. I think it was Tuesdays and Fridays. I'd rehearse. After I'd rehearse, I'd go to a club, pass out flyers, go back home at like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, have to get up at 7 in the morning, go to work and do the whole thing over again. So, you know, mind you, I was young and invincible at the time. And staying up, you know, getting 2 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep a night, that didn't bother me so much at the age of 25. But eventually, you know, things began to change and the internet came about. And all of a sudden, the names on the mailing list became less and less. Because if you sent out a letter to somebody who moved or something, it would come back to you. So little by little, the mailing list got less and less and less, and the internet began to take over. So then I had to build up a list of names on the internet. But that didn't really happen until probably the early part of 2000. Actually, probably the late 90s. So yeah, I did it. I mean, I couldn't give you an exact price on what it cost me to do my own promotion before I got everybody involved. But I can tell you that it definitely got less and less that I had to spend as I began to get, you know, vendors at the shows. And they became part of my advertisement. And the crowds just grew.
And we're gonna go into the world of Ocean of Dreams here. Yeah!
Faces
It's been a fun trip.
I walked into these clubs and saw the greats before they disappeared.
Right, because that's how that works.
They're doing the song contest.